Motorists have fallen behind on car loans at a very, very scary rate. In fact, it's never been worse than what it is now in 30 years. This is the worst ever default rate in 30 years. In fact, what this means is 6.1% of buyers are now more than 60 days behind, and a huge number of buyers now are facing interest repayments of 21.4%, meaning even more people will soon join the ranks of defaults. It's a big problem. It's a really big problem for some companies, particularly the Volkswagen Group, Ford as well. Why is it a big problem for companies like those that I just mentioned? Well, in times when automotive repayments are not falling behind, those companies actually make a lot of money on giving out loans on cars. In fact, Ford makes nearly half of its profit on car loans. But when buyers are defaulting, well, Ford has to suffer those losses. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. Great to see you. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Motorists are falling behind on their new car payments at the highest rate in nearly 30 years, in 29 years. The percentage of subprime auto borrowers at least 60 days past due on their loans rose to 6.1% in September. That's the highest rate since 1994, according to Fitch Ratings. So this is a big problem, like I said, for companies like Ford and the Volkswagen Group. Now, these defaults and customers falling behind, this is not just an American issue. And the American media are reporting it like it is. It's not. It's actually happening in multiple countries. You got to remember that interest rates haven't just gone up in the US. They've gone up everywhere. Australia, Europe, China. Interest rates have skyrocketed due to massive inflation worldwide over the past 6 months. This means car buyers are now finding the resale value of their used cars is below their loan costs. So they're just saying, well, we're just going to walk away. What's the point of even bothering with this? That means companies like Ford, who have more than $100 billion in debt, much of which of that debt is considered good debt when it's being repaid. Ford essentially acts as a bank. Ford Finance is nearly 50% of the company. And it works well, but it doesn't work well when buyers are not paying back their loans. And when you're Ford and you've got this much debt, more of that debt is becoming bad debt. That's potentially a big problem. With interest rate hikes making newer loans much more expensive, millions of subprime car owners are struggling to afford payments. I mean, millions. That's a pretty scary proposition. It's a clear indication of distress at a time when the economy is sending some pretty alarming signals, particularly about the health of consumer spending. And it's come right at the point when we've got this war now with Israel and Hamas. Of course, Iran wants to get involved. The US could get involved. Then we've got Russia and Ukraine. So it's a very dangerous situation. There's a lot of experts, financial analysts now saying that they believe there's going to be a recession over the next 6 months. Consumer spending will fall because of fears around global uncertainty, global politics, global wars. What happens when this sort of thing happens? Consumer spending goes down, interest rates continue to go up, defaults continue to rise as people start to lose their jobs. Consumer spending going down always results in job losses. The percent of subprime borrowers at least 60 days past due of their loans has now risen to over 6% in September. It could be higher than 7% by the time you're watching this video. Here's the thing though, after burning through tax returns, as in spending their tax returns, contending with a shakier job market and grappling with still elevated inflation, more car owners are defaulting on their loans completely. Behind the surge is both higher car prices, higher borrowing costs, and the other thing is Resale values of cars have dropped significantly now to the point where, like I said, many loans are worth less than the value of the car itself. With the Federal Reserve indicating it plans to keep rates high, possibly even higher for longer, this problem is going to persist. It's going to probably get worse, especially as millions of Americans recently started paying their federal student loans again. There's a lot of Americans who've had to start paying extra money as a result of this. The subprime borrower is getting squeezed, said Margaret Rose, Senior Director with the asset-backed securities group Fitch. They can often be a first line of where we start to see the negative effects of macroeconomic headwinds. Ariel Larson, a 27-year-old college student in Maryland, knew it was risky to neglect her car payment, as in stop paying it. But she just said she didn't have the money. When she looked out her window one morning in the middle of August and couldn't see her 2015 Toyota Prius, she knew immediately what had happened. It had been repossessed. After transferring from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore to Towson University in May, she said she struggled to find a job. Her old one had been on an on-campus position that she had to give up when changing schools. This was despite applying for more than 20 different positions. She said she could barely afford her rent bill of $900, so her $460 $8 per month bill fell by the wayside. Now, personally, when I was this age, I didn't think it was a good idea to have a car loan, period. I just don't think for most people it's necessary. And at that age, I don't recommend it. So if you've got children, grandchildren, or yourself, you're in that age bracket, try to avoid getting a car loan if you're studying, for example. It makes things quite stressful. Larson didn't have the money to get her car back after it was seized. And the reality is, the car was worth likely less than what her loan repayments actually were. So the car went to auction. Now she's stuck walking hours to campus every day for classes. And that's what she said. She said it's been stressful. It's like, how do I get around now? She said, I don't leave the house much because getting to places takes forever. My recommendation to her is don't be lazy, get a bike. Getting a bicycle actually helps to solve that. When I was a kid, I was at high school, even at primary school, I rode a pretty decent distance every single day in the mornings and at night times. Sometimes I even rode up to 20 kilometers. And that's doable, especially if you're 27 years old. So get some good lights, you can get around with a cheap bicycle. Anyway, having access to a car is a necessity though for millions in areas without reliable transportation. If you've got children, you've got to take them to school. Well, a bicycle is probably not going to suit you. However, prices for both used and new vehicles are still historically high, particularly for new ones, not so much for used ones. However, declining prices have only slightly come down from peaks during the pandemic in many US states. This means that many low-income workers need a car to get to work and they're struggling. And many of them have defaulted already. For those with the best credit scores, they get an interest rate of between 5.1 to 7.1% for used vehicles on average, according to Bankrate. But those are the very best. For those with bad credit, rates are 14.2 to 21.4%. That's for new and used cars, respectively. That's very, very high. Josephine in Denver said that with her credit score of 580, she's paying an interest rate of 14% on her 2019 Honda Ridgeline truck. The expense is $700 a month for the loan. So, give you some context, a Tesla Model Y only costs $400 a month to lease. So it's a lot of money, $700 a month. The 28-year-old makes $17 an hour working at Costco, and she struggles to make her car payments along with her rent, all while she tries to pay down more than $20,000 in credit card debt. That's stressful. She's trying to trade in the car for something cheaper, but that's difficult while she's behind on payments and worried it could get seized. It's a constant thing for me. I'm checking it to make sure it's not repossessed, she said. They said as long as I pay before the next pay date, I'm fine. But I have to make a payment before next month. As payment delinquencies rise across America and across Europe, across Australia, and across China, repossessions are going to increase accordingly. This is bad for big lenders, particularly ones like I said, Ford and the Volkswagen Group. Cox Automotive estimates that 1.5 million vehicles will be seized this year, up from 1.2 million last year. That's still below pre-pandemic levels, but those numbers are growing rapidly. Kelly Donnell, a 31-year-old bartender in Radley, NC, has had her car repossessed after her tips started to dry up earlier this year, and she began to miss her $400 auto payments. Automotive News says that her parents were able to loan her the money to get back her car, which she bought in August 2021 for $19,000 US. But now she's in debt to them on top of her usual expenses, which keep increasing with inflation, especially on her diminished salary. When the economy takes a hit, I feel it, she said. I make $2 an hour and live on tips. When things get more expensive, people have less money and then tipping less. So there goes my wages. Unfortunately, this is just the case for many low-income earners. They're in a very, very difficult position. When spending shrinks, they're the first ones to get hit. Now, remember when the mortgage crisis, subprime mortgage crisis happened back in 2008? Who went bankrupt? General Motors. Could this happen again? Well, isn't it interesting that Ford got a $7.8 billion loan from the US government? General Motors just got a $2.5 billion loan from the US government. Very low interest rates. Clearly, they saw this coming. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.